What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 9 of the Nosebleeds Section podcast. My name is Nick, alongside my co-host Thomas. We apologize very much for not getting an episode out just recently. We had a couple complications that we didn't expect to arise, but we are back, as I say every episode, Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m., given some unforeseen circumstances, but hopefully we will let you know before that happens. But again, we apologize. A lot has happened since the last episode that we recorded. The NBA is back fully. Like, they started actual games. The NHL has started actual games. The MLB. I believe we did talk about the MLB start. Actually, maybe not. I don't think we did, actually. Sports are almost back. Or sports are back, should I say. The MLS is almost done. They've almost completely finished their entire MLS is back tournament. A lot to talk about. Not much news individually. We did talk last week about the Jamal Adams news, but that's about the most individual news that I think anyone has. Oh, there actually is one thing, which will be in the NFL, which we will talk about a little bit later. But to start, we'll start with the NBA. The NBA is back. One thing I do want to bring up, I do understand it is the bubble, and maybe it's not the same circumstances. Does these circumstances, should a player be performing worse or maybe better in these circumstances? Because I think you already know what I'm going to bring up, and I don't mean it at him, but because he also tweeted a little joke about it. But what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I feel like it's like a completely different environment than what they're used to. I mean, they're used to traveling pretty much every single day, chilling in a hotel room and then getting ready for the game. And I mean, it's similar to that, but I mean, I've seen Terrence Ross. He started his own podcast while he's actually in the bubble, and he literally talked about how boring it is. He said, like, you saw the pictures from the first couple of days where they were fishing and golfing, and he said in like 3 days that was boring and like no one was doing it anymore. So I don't know. I feel like being bored all the time, you might not be playing your best basketball. So I don't know. How do you feel?
Um, I do think it's a different environment compared to what they're used to. But at the same time, this is like their craft. This is what they more or less have trained like their entire life for. Very different environment. Obviously, like, for example, T.J. Warren. I don't think anyone thought he was a bad player, but he comes out in his first game and he drops 53 points, which is just absurd. And I think it's more absurd because of how many people, not, I wouldn't say doubted him, but more so like, if you were to look at the people in the bubble who scored 50 points, you would have put James Harden up there as one of the top ones. You would have put like LeBron up there, like Giannis. Like, you would have put those players like up there. Like, I don't think T.J. Warren would have been in your top 10 for who's going to drop 50 at the bubble first. But on the flip side, Jason Tatum shot a solid 2 for 18, 2 for 19, and had 5 points in game one. He joked about it, saying it's the haircut because he shaved his head, or he just let it grow out. Honestly, I don't know that. I didn't really look into it that much, but it gets a different like vibe, and I feel like some players are adapting better than others. Not saying that everyone's bad. Like, also to put in, the Raptors smoked the Lakers, and I feel like everyone has the Lakers on such a high pedestal because of who they have. I don't think, like, looking at the Lakers, you're like, oh, like, I think they're going to lose a game. But again, the whole restart and everything is much different than anything we've really seen. So a lot of people are adapting like differently, especially getting like back to like full play where it really matters. Like, this is the final 8 games of the regular season, and then you're going to start playoffs. It's interesting. It's not, again, not the most ideal circumstances, but some players are adapting different. Some are adapting better, worse. Who do you think is going to come out of the bubble the most? I'm not going to say successful, because obviously the team that comes out most successful is going to win the championship. But who do you think is going to come out of the bubble and going to have, like, the bubble will have the best impact on them?
That's a good question. I feel like based on what we've seen so far, I would probably have to say maybe the Magic. I don't know. I know it's as weird as it sounds. They're a team that's at the bottom of the East. You don't really expect them to do much, and so far all they've played up until this point is they beat the Kings today, or I'm recording this Sunday, 132 to 116. They beat the Nets 128 to 118, but that's a team that not that everyone expected them to lose every single game, but I know the competition they were playing against wasn't the highest. But for them to come out and start off 2-0 and almost guarantee that at least an eighth spot in the East, I feel like is huge for them. That's going to gain some confidence for those young players in that team.
100%. And with them winning those two games, it actually moved them from 8th to 7th in the East. So they would go against the Raptors instead of the Bucks. Not saying it's much easier competition, because let's be real, I think both teams are just phenomenal. Like they're both like extremely good teams. They're not someone you really want to face in the playoffs. Honestly, if I had to say a team, I think the Magic is a good pick, but at the same time, like, they're fighting for the 7 or 8 seed. They're not so really fighting for that like 6 seed. I don't even think they can't even get it. I don't think. Yeah, they can't. They can't. So they're fighting for the 7 and the 8 seed. More or less, it's fighting to see who plays the Bucks, who plays the Raptors. If I really had to guess, I think the Pelicans are going to come out worse, because I don't know if you saw yesterday, but the Pelicans were literally down by like 40 points at halftime. Like, that was just bad. And I mean, they barely played Zion in their first game. Like, they didn't play him in the fourth quarter.
Nope.
Which is interesting to say the least. I don't know. I want to say the Blazers, because I think the Blazers are going to get into the playoffs. But again, you're fighting for the 8th seed between the Grizzlies, the Spurs, and the Blazers.
Yeah.
And it's not like you get into the playoffs and you're playing like a mediocre team per se. Not that any team's mediocre, but like you're going up against LeBron and the Lakers, because you can't reach the 7th seed. So I'm going to say the Blazers, but I'm going to say the Blazers because they're outside of the playoffs at the moment. They are 2.5 games back, and as long as they're in like the 3 to 4 game window, they get to play the 8th seed, and they have to beat them twice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Blazers are going to come out of the bubble better off, because I think Melo will sign back to them, and I don't think it bumps them up enough where they get a bad draft pick, because again, it's lottery. Like, they have a chance. They'll just get more, like a higher chance to go higher up in the draft. Not that there's an incredible amount of people to draft from, but they can use that pick to trade away for like cap space or like anything, a player or something. So I think the Blazers, because I think the Blazers, I mean, you have Damian Lillard, you have CJ McCollum, like, you have probably one of, I would say a top 3 front court or back court. I've just messed that up completely in the NBA. But just between the two of them. And then if you can just find like a couple good pieces, like I think Hassan Whiteside is a good fit for them. Maybe if he could play a little more defense.
Well, he's not even starting. I don't know if you saw the game today. They actually
Yeah,
played.
he's not.
Yeah, they have Joseph Nurkic back finally, and they played the Celtics today. What a game from the Trailblazers star players, and Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and even Joseph Nurkic. They were losing by 24 points in the third quarter, and at that point I feel like the star players that kind of just turn it off, they're done. But like you said, the Trailblazers are still fighting for that 8th seed, and this is a playoff atmosphere for them, unlike other teams at the top. And for them to fight back, I mean, the Celtics ultimately won, but they fought all the way back to actually take the lead with 3 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. That's insane. You saw Damian Lillard diving after balls. He went on a streak of hitting like 6 straight threes that brought them all the way back. Like, that's a team, like you said, I feel like they could definitely come out of this with a positive, because their star players are showing that they want to win. They're not just there for the money and the show. They want to win, and that was something that I think really stood out to even the bench, because the bench was going crazy.
Yeah, and something that I want to point out is earlier in one of our earlier episodes, we talked about how the NBA obviously is, like, at least in my opinion, very fan oriented in the fact that the fans can impact the game significantly.
Hmm.
But at the like I impacted in the way of like momentum, because I think basketball is a big momentum sport as well. Where if you go on a run, that run can take you, and the other team literally has to take a timeout to stop that momentum. Otherwise, like nothing goes right for your team. Um, but like when you have players doing, as you said, like diving for balls or like, and these are your star players. It's not like people that are just fighting for minutes. These are your star players diving for balls and really doing anything they can to try to get a win. That's like That's as much momentum as you need. That will take you through without a fan base there. Um, but yeah, I think they're going to be one of the bigger winners coming out of this. They also had a lot of injuries throughout the year.
Hmm.
Like in the very beginning of the year, Zach Collins was hurt, and not that he's like this prolific player that they really need, but they were playing Carmelo Anthony at the four, and or like they weren't playing anyone that could match up against the four. They were struggling so much, and I think Damian Lillard got hurt for a little. I think C.J. McCollum got hurt for a little. Like one of them, or maybe both. But I know they had a lot of like injury issues like throughout the year, and they just weren't as good defensively, and I think Zach Collins really helped with that. Again, not a prolific like scorer, but when you don't need another prolific scorer, you need someone who can play defense. When you have Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum, kind of scoring at will whenever they want. But as the NBA ramps back up, we will definitely continue to talk about that because the NBA is just getting started. They didn't even get to the playoffs yet. These are just the first 8 games to find out if you have a chance at the playoffs. So as that ramps up, we are definitely going to be talking about that more often. But moving on, the NHL has also started, and they are starting with it's like the round of 24, and the round of 24 will then go obviously to the round of 16, which is just the normal playoffs. But the round of 24 is a best of 5 series, which I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know. I thought it was just kind of a win and move on, lose and go home kind of thing. But the fact that it's a best of 5 series, I'm actually a big fan of, mainly because I'm a Ranger fan, and the Rangers lost their first game, so I'm a big fan that they still have more games to come back. But like just in general, it's more hockey, and I think one thing that we're going to talk about in our next for our next topic, which is going to come into play more. They're in the bubble, like it's in a bubble in Toronto, so they are getting tested constantly, like temperature checks, COVID checks, everything, like the whole like 9 yards, and you just get more hockey. And I know there's a lot of like people that love playoff hockey, and this is literally like extra playoff hockey. Like I mean, at least for me, just an average fan. I'm not like a diehard fan. I'm just a normal Ranger fan. I always tune into the playoff games because they have so much. They're so intense and they're so entertaining to watch. Because it's not like basketball where you get to the last like quarter and all of a sudden each team's using one of their 64 timeouts, and like every 2 minutes. Where hockey is literally back and forth, just constant. Like there's so much happening. It's so entertaining, and I mean, it's probably like that all year. But I gotta be honest, I don't watch it as much throughout the year. But playoff hockey is, I mean, I think we can both agree, and I think we've talked about this on the show before, that playoff hockey is the most entertaining hockey there is. And you just added more games for playoff hockey, like just the playoff atmosphere. And I didn't even know that. And you don't understand how excited I am that I actually found this out yesterday when I found out that the Rangers went down 0-1 instead of they were knocked out. I just thought it was for the round of 24. You just, if you lose, you're out. You go home. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the best of 5 for the like? Do you think it's too much, or do you think that that it fits right in because it really puts the better team through to the round, like next round?
I feel like it puts the better team through, especially since it obviously had to go a little bit off standing from the little bit of the season they got to play earlier, and now it gives a team that maybe was getting hot towards the end, and maybe obviously with taking the few months of no activity, they might not be as hot. So I feel like giving them the best of 5 right off the bat, maybe they go down 0-1 or 0-2, and they are the better team, but they just need to get that back, like that momentum back that they had, and get back into their groove. So I feel like the best of 5 kind of gives a chance for the better team to still win if they're not as hot as the other team is at the time.
100%. And I think the best, like one of the better examples of that is literally before they had to shut down the league. I think the Rangers were the hottest team in hockey. And I know I'm talking a lot about the Rangers, but I don't pay attention. Like, I know other players and I pay attention a little bit, but I'm not, as I said, like this diehard hockey fan. But I know the Rangers were like the hottest team in hockey. That the points that they were scoring game in, game out, like almost every game they were getting like a point minimum, and like they were just catching up to that wild card spot. So I think this really helps them because obviously they're down 0-1 in their series, but I feel like it gives them a really good chance to like bounce back, especially because of how hot they came off. But also in hockey, the Hurricanes are up 1-0 on the Rangers. The Blackhawks are up 1-0 on the Oilers. Islanders up 1-0 on the Panthers. Canadians 1-0 on the Penguins. And the Flames lead the series 1-0 over the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think any... Oh, no. So none of these teams played. Second game. Interesting. Coyotes are 1-0 up on the Predators. Flyers 1-0 up on the Bruins. Avalanche are 1-0 up on the Blues. And as we are time recording this, the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jackets are tied 0-0 at the end of 2. Hockey actually starts mad early. I did not know that.
Yeah.
The Rangers play tomorrow at 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did
I didn't know
on Saturday as well.
I actually didn't know that. That's crazy. But also at the same time, you literally just get hockey all day.
Well, they only have 2 rinks, I believe. I think there's the Western Conference is playing in Edmonton. And then the East is...
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah, so the Eastern Conference is playing in Toronto, and the West is playing in Edmonton. I think they use 1 rink, maybe 2 rinks at each, maybe a practice one and a game one.
Yeah. I actually didn't. I didn't know it was like split conference. That makes sense though.
Yeah. Then at the when it gets to the Stanley Cup, it will be in a neutral. Like neither team will be in either bubble. Will be in another bubble-like atmosphere. But it will be in a different city that's not announced yet. But another thing I want to ask you is, Toronto actually has seemed to be the better facility. The Eastern Conference has had the better activities, the better hotels. Do you think that's going to affect maybe later down the line, maybe when they play for the championship, if a team's been, in a better, with better accommodations than the other team, or do you think that doesn't matter for anyone?
I've never thought of it like that. I don't know if it's... Is it definitely like that? Like the East, like is so called like better than the West, like where they are.
I mean the West the other day for like 4 days they didn't even have air conditioning in their rooms. Their rooms were like 92 degrees. Like that
I didn't know.
Yeah,
about.
like
I feel the activities though are like split up. Like I mean, if they're gonna have activities one, they're gonna try to set it up at the other. They're not just gonna be like, hey,
it's
we'll only
what's
do
around
this
the
here.
resort. Edmonton, I believe they're like in the middle of nowhere. There's not much to do. Where they were able to get some golf courses and other activities that are around the Toronto arena where they can stay in that bubble like atmosphere. So I feel like that's really what's been talked about. But I'm just for the West, I just kind of feel bad. I mean, I know like they're going to practice and going to the meals and stuff most of the day, but to not have air conditioning and to have a hotel, I think they had a water main break, so their water wasn't clean for a while too. Like,
yeah, it's not like a comfortable feel.
Exactly.
Like you can't feel comfortable in a place like that. It's not helpful to say the least. I actually didn't know that. That's interesting. I don't think it's gonna affect the way they play, because if anything, it's more on their shoulders. Like, oh, you gave us the bad one, now we just want to it's like a chip. But at the same time, it might be for the East, like, oh, they've been relaxed this entire time, maybe too relaxed.
That's true.
I don't know. I've never really thought of it like that. Probably just because I don't know. There's actually no reason. But as we were talking about the bubble, there's one sport that came back that doesn't have a bubble, which is the MLB. And not having a bubble, I think, has taken a toll, I guess you can say, on the MLB, as the Miami Marlins had about 14 to 15 confirmed cases. And then the St. Louis Cardinals had the same. Now, they're not in a bubble per se, so there's no rules of going outside the bubble or anything. So like theoretically, like the Miami Marlins, I believe, went to a strip club, and the St. Louis Cardinals went to a casino. Not all of them, but like some of them. But they technically didn't break like any rule. There's nothing the MLB and Rob Manfred can do to be like, oh, you can't do that. Like I guess you can suspend them, but like technically they didn't break a rule. Where like if you leave the bubble in the NBA or the NHL or something, you like for example, Will Williams, he left the bubble and now he's literally quarantined and is missing games for the Clippers. So the MLB has some, I guess you can say, thinking to do because I don't think the way they restarted is the way they should have restarted because they just tried to restart with a lower game season and do it as if there's no travel restrictions. Do you think that like the way they're doing it is the way it should be done?
No, not at all. And then Rob Manfred comes out and says, the players have to be better. Which, I mean, to be fair, he's not wrong in that case. But
No, he's not
but
wrong.
the MLB also should have had in place. I think I saw somewhere that the MLB teams are traveling with like almost as much as an NFL roster as player wise. I think they're traveling with almost 50 people to a team, which makes sense why they couldn't be in a bubble like the other teams because where they have like 15, 16, 17 players and then a couple coaches with them. But there should be an atmosphere like a bubble. I feel like the players shouldn't be allowed to leave the hotel that they're staying at. The hotel should be like pre-booked. So if a team, like whenever a team goes to play, like the Mets or the Yankees, for example, like that hotel has only been used for other MLB teams. Like I feel like it should have been set up that way. I feel like the way it was set up has allowed these circumstances to happen, and it's obviously affecting the league in a negative way.
Yeah, 100%. What I think should be done is obviously you want to play different teams, and I understand the conflict of like if you're just playing the same team over and over again, it's not actually playing the league. But instead of maybe doing a bubble, maybe you do a regional bubble kind of thing. So for example, you put teams like the Yankees, the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Mets, the Nationals, and the Phillies all in one division. And you just let them play each other somewhere in like upper New York, right? And then like you have like maybe you go to the south. You do like the Braves, the Marlins, the Rays, like who else is like down there? I don't even know. I'm trying to like go back and forth between divisions to see who's like down there, but like you just do it regionally. If you do it regionally, you have teams not traveling as much. And then on top of that, if they travel to a hotel, you have to make sure they stay inside the hotel, as you were saying. And if they don't stay inside the hotel, well, then that's on them, and then they have to be like quarantined in order to come back.
Yep.
But I just think that's a much better. If they did something like that, that's a much better outlook on how they could have controlled it instead of saying, "Oh yeah," like for example, like one of the first games was where it went was Miami traveling to Philly. You thought that running from one like epicenter of America very close to another was a great idea. Not the brightest. I mean, again, they're I don't think they're like meaning to like obviously like catch it or like contract it and like give it to others. But I mean like there's got to be some kind of thought process going on between no, like teams just in general, right?
Yeah. Well, the MLB did try to set up something. I don't know if you've noticed or if you've seen it. I saw it quick somewhere, and I was surprised that
Well, they were gonna do like just the AL plays the AL, or like just like the East Coast plays the East Coast.
that's what they're
right?
doing. Yeah, it's no team on the. It's bigger than what you said. I agree. It should maybe be a little bit smaller, like like the Northeast, Southeast, something like that. But all the teams on the East Coast are playing teams on the East. All the Central teams are
Yeah.
playing each other, and then all the West teams are playing each other. But I agree, it should probably have been smaller. I feel like having, like you said, Miami, an epicenter of the
Like,
coronavirus, go to another
or
place that's so close to New York. It was another epicenter. So
Yeah. Or think about it this way: in the AL East, you have the Rays and the Yankees. You go from Florida to New York. Not even Philly. Just take Philly out. Florida to New York. Literally two epicenters, and you just drop drop them in, and they're like, oh yeah, there should be no issues. Same thing with the Marlins, and same thing with the Mets. Like you're just dropping them in as if like nothing's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, oh yeah, you're just gonna go fly there, and you're gonna go to a hotel, and then you're gonna play, as if like nothing is gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the West is not as bad just because California kind of takes up majority of the West.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, not that it's like ideal, but I feel like majority of the cases are on the East Coast. So like flying a team from New York to Florida or Florida to New York is not the brightest idea. Where I understand they tried to do something similar, but you literally just took one epicenter and connected it with another and expected absolutely nothing to go wrong. And again, as like you said and as I said, they're not doing anything to anyone who's like in a hotel or like if they're at home. Like you're not, you can't stop them from like going somewhere. I guess they're not in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
They like very interesting way that the MLB went about it. Obviously, they're not like all like we don't care if you get COVID. They're obviously like looking out for their players, but they definitely could have went about it a much different way because it just was not. It, there's so many other ways that could have been done, so many other ways, and it just wasn't done right. But also talking about the MLB not doing things right. Joe Kelly, who's probably one of my favorite baseball players right now, threw at the Houston Astros when they played. Joe Kelly's a pitcher on the Dodgers, relief pitcher. He threw at Alex Bregman, missed him, and he like went over his head and everything. And he walked in a run, I think, or he like walked the bases loaded. And then Carlos Correa steps up to the plate, and what looked like a curveball, he was throwing something with a lot of spin, almost hit Carlos Correa. And then he struck Carlos Correa out. They had some choice words for each other. And Joe Kelly gave him like a little baby face. And Joe Kelly gets suspended for 8 games, which in an MLB season is equivalent to 22. Keep in mind they're playing 60 games. He was almost suspended for a sixth of the actual games they'd be playing. Like that's, and also keep in mind, no one on the Astros was punished. Not one person. A couple people were fired just because they were like had to do with it, but at this like no one was suspended a game. Nothing. Joe Kelly gets suspended 8 games for not even hitting anyone, but for more or less throwing at someone and making a baby face. I don't even understand how that's equivalent or worse than cheating. And one thing I think the baseball, like the MLB does well is, not even the MLB, baseball in general, it kind of polices itself. In the fact that, look, you do something wrong, you're going to get thrown at. Like, this is just like your punishment for doing it. And that's just kind of like the forsaken rule of baseball. And you can't even do that. Like, not saying it should be done, but it just kind of happens. Like, it's happened for years and years. You'll watch like one pitcher throw at a player, and then the other team will throw at like one of their players. It just, I don't condone it, but like it's just done. It kind of polices itself. And the fact that the Astros weren't given anything for cheating, the players are trying to police it themselves, and now the players can't do that because now they're going to get suspended for majority of the season.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Joe Kelly. I mean, he's got suspended for 8 games, but man, is he popular with the fans right now?
Oh, 100. As I said, he's one of my favorite players right now.
Yeah.
I'm not even like, I don't think he should have been suspended for 8 games. I think it was extremely harsh. Maybe you suspended for like 2 or 3, but 8 games, he didn't even hit anyone. And you can argue one of them. I would say not the fastball at Bregman. You could argue the curveball at Correa was not meant to hit him. And then he struck him out. It's not like he threw at him again. He struck him out. They had choice words, and Joe Kelly was more like cry about it.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it was very fair towards how the Astros, not one person was suspended for cheating. And I kind of get Rob Manfred's point of the fact, like, oh, you can't, like, pinpoint, like, the couple people that started it. Like, fair, but, like, you got to do something. You can't just suspend Joe Kelly 8 games and do nothing to the Astros. Like, I guarantee the Astros will be thrown out again, and if they're not, it's because Joe Kelly was suspended for the amount of games he was in the shortened season. If he's suspended for 8 games in a normal season for that, I think it just happens all the time. I think, like, more pitchers would throw at the Astros.
Do you think Rob Manfred gave such a strict, because it obviously has to come from, the commissioner's office, at least, not specifically him. But do you think he made such a big suspension because it brings up the whole Houston Astros situation again, where obviously, the first time it came around, he was, almost villainized with the way he handled it. So do you think he
Well, it's because he didn't do anything.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think I think I kind of know what you're going to say. And, yeah, I think he put a harsher punishment because he doesn't want people to bring it up, because when people bring it up, it shows how bad he handled the situation the first time around. So every time the Astros are thrown at, that situation is brought back up, and it's like, oh, this player got suspended, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And they cheated the entire league.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, Rob Manfred has a lot to talk about and go over. We are about, like, 7 to 10 games ish into the MLB season. Definitely going to be covering the MLB more as we go further into the MLB season, if it's not canceled, because there's a couple games being postponed because a couple teams have to quarantine. Hopefully it doesn't get canceled, but again, as we talked about, if you're flying from Florida to New York, there's a good chance that you might have COVID. But yeah, as that comes back, we will definitely talk about that.
I feel like we should talk about one thing, actually. I kind of forgot about this. We didn't put this in our notes. But we already saw one person do this. You think we're going to see anyone else opt out in the middle of the season because of coronavirus scares? Like we saw today with Yoenis Cespedes?
Yeah, I definitely think we will. Especially if more teams confirm cases, only because, like, it's like you don't want to contract it, and then if you contract it and give it to, like, one of your loved ones and you're the reason they got it, it's not something easy to deal with. So you want to try to keep everyone around you safe and everything. So I definitely think that some more players will opt out. As of right now, it just seems like everyone kind of wants to play, and Yoenis Cespedes is the first one I've seen. Obviously, there were people that opted out before the season started, so and you can't blame anyone for opting out midway through the season. But yeah, I do think a couple other players will drop out. Something quick before we go towards the end of the episode. The NFL came out with their top 100 players, as they do every year. We did talk about a very large contract handed to someone, Patrick Mahomes, a couple weeks ago, how it's worth $500 million, which is, I would consider, a lot of money. He was ranked at number 4 for the upcoming NFL season. How is Patrick Mahomes worth $500 million but ranked below Aaron Donald and Russell Wilson? I'm not going to say he shouldn't be ranked below Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson is the reigning MVP. So I would say that's kind of fair to put Lamar Jackson at number 1, right?
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson and Aaron Donald, how do you not put Patrick Mahomes at number 2?
And Khalil Mack.
I think that's... I mean, we talked about, like, people doing kind of very interesting things around NFL and Madden. How, first of all, something that also bugs me, just because I just thought of this. Lamar Jackson is ranked as the number 1 player coming into the 2020 NFL season, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it's based on last season.
Oh, based on last season, but also it's like he's ranked number 1 going into the season because of last season.
Yeah.
Rob Gronkowski, who has not played football in over a year, is a higher overall than the number 1 NFL player coming into the 2020 season. Saying that just messes with my mind. Like, just sounds like it's mind-boggling. I don't even... Like, he should be the number one player. Mahomes should be two. And then you can argue Wilson or Aaron Donald for 3 and 4. I would probably say Wilson 3, Donald 4. But I don't think either of them should be ahead of Mahomes. And not just because of his contract, but because of his skill. He's utterly insane. Like, he's the Super Bowl MVP. They just won the Super Bowl, and you're going to put him at number 4. The Rams could barely make the playoffs. I just...
The only defense I could have for it, and this is not me saying I agree with it, but obviously the list is made. You know, it does kind of carry some weight going into the next season, but the list when it's made by, you know, the coaches and, you know, all the people who vote on it, not very many players get to vote on it, even though they say they do. But I feel the only excuse the people who rated him lower than he should have been was the fact that he was injured for like 4 weeks, or it might have even been less than that. But that's not even, in my opinion, a legitimate excuse because of what he can. It's not a regular season list; it's a whole season into next year list. So what those 4 games does not discredit anything he had to do. You know, coming back in all those playoff games and the Super Bowl, like it's mind-boggling.
100%. And just think of it this way, right? He's out for 4 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
He throws, while being out for 4 games.
What did you think of Patrick Mahomes?
He throws
being named
over 4,000 yards, which is 10th for quarterbacks. 4,000 yards while being out for 4 games. He throws 26 touchdowns while being out for 4 games, which is tied for 8th. The only quarterbacks I could probably think through more are Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, and I can't think of his name. Lamar Jackson. That's just off the top of my head, but Aaron Rodgers probably threw more as well. That's just off the top of my head. I'm not like going down the list of quarterbacks in my head. He threw 5 interceptions, which is tied for 3rd least. And he had a QBR of a 76.3, which is 2nd. While being out for 4 games, he also wins a Super Bowl. He wins a Super Bowl MVP. And you're going to tell me he's not the number 2 player going into next year behind the reigning MVP? I just think the thought process there is just interesting to say the least. But you have, I mean, Lamar Jackson definitely deserves to be number 1. Mahomes should be at number 2. You can't argue, I guess, because my guess is when they were doing it, they just went through the 16 games instead of the playoffs and everything. That's all I can go through, because did the Rams even make the playoffs? I don't know if they did. I think they did. I'm almost positive they did. But to end the episode, we're just going to talk about the MLS a little. The MLS is down to the final 4 teams. The Philadelphia Union played the Portland Timbers on August 5th. Orlando City plays Minnesota United on August 6th. The winner of those 2 games will play in the MLS is Back tournament final presented by Wells Fargo and Audi. Who do you think comes home with the title?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I feel like any team that I felt had a good chance, you know. I mean, I don't, like I said, I'm not an MLS expert, but any team I was confident in, I feel like they've just lost. So I want to hear your prediction.
I think Philadelphia has a pretty good chance. But I think Orlando City is going to win.
Really?
And why is because I was iffy on their defense coming into this entire tournament. I thought their defense was going to be a little suspect, and I thought they were going to have a lot of issues. In the quarterfinals, they shut out Montreal. Or in the round of 16, they shut out Montreal. In the quarterfinals, they hold LAFC, the team predicted to win the entire tournament, to 1 goal. Diego Rossi on LAFC outscored majority of the teams even playing in the tournament. He outscored so many teams coming in, like teams. He himself outscored so many teams coming into bracket play. They hold LAFC to 1 goal, and they advance on PKs. You can argue their offense is a little suspect, where Minnesota has an offense firing on all cylinders. you could argue Philadelphia at the same time. This is also has an offense firing on all cylinders. But I think Orlando, the way they've been playing and what they have going for them, I think Orlando's going to pull it out. I think Orlando's going to be the team to beat. Minnesota has I think no matter what, it's not going to be easy, but I think Minnesota has a big game coming up on their hands. And I think Orlando's going to take the MLS's back tournament. Again, I won't know till August 6th because if they get knocked out, that's going to be quite upsetting. Yeah, I think they're going to win it. Yeah, it's going to be them. It's going to be them.
What a
But
turnaround
that is
for
going to
them.
do it.
Oh, my bad. But
Huh?
what a turnaround for
No,
them.
you're good.
Because if you look at their first game when they played against Inter Miami, even though they did win the game in the 96th minute, they did not look like a team that was going to make any noise. You know, they had Nani.
Not at all.
And that was supposed to be a big addition. But, like, they did not play well. I mean, to see them in, you know, the Final Four teams is kind of shocking. But, you know, you're right. They made LAFC, you know, the team that was, you know, predicted to win it, a team that's a phenomenal goal-scoring team. To hold them to one goal, and that's impressive. Their defense is looking pretty good.
Yeah, and that was the part I was a little iffy on. I thought their offense is very good with Nani, Muller. They have Dom Dwyer up there as well. I think they have a lot of good pieces going forward. It was the defense for me that was a little off, and they returned a lot of their players from last year, which could be a reason. I thought Alex Dejan was going to actually hop in and start for them, but he hasn't played much. João Matinho, I think his name is. He's been extremely good. Jansen's been good. They've been a very good defensive side, which, again, surprised me. I did not think they would be that good defensively. So I think they have a very good chance, especially taking down LAFC. I think they have a very good chance to win it all. And hopefully August 6th comes and they don't prove me wrong, because that would suck if I'm saying they're going to win and then they just blow it. But Minnesota's a very good team. They have a offense firing all cylinders. But that is going to do it for episode 9 of the Nosebleeds Section podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on the video coming out every Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. and YouTube. We'll see you.